You're alive.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. This is a regularly scheduled city council workshop. Today is Wednesday, November 13th, and it is 6:00 p.m. Around the table, we have Councillor Fournier, Councillor Maller, Councillor Beck, Councillor Hawes, Councillor Fish, Councillor Tremble, myself, Councillor Pelletier, and Councillor Dean. And the first thing up on the agenda tonight is the update for the encampment closure.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. Congratulations, incoming councilors. I'm really excited to work with you all. I have another encampment update to bring forward tonight. As many of you know, we are still proceeding with the closure date effective December 31st of this year. We have continued to engage providers in this space. That include folks who are providing direct service, the PATH team, the home team, options medical team, and the medical outreach teams that continue to provide services in that space, as well as additional groups who work incredibly hard in our community to support some of our most vulnerable neighbors. We continue to iron out the wrinkles in the fabric that is this partnership. When you endeavor to move forward in such a complex and nuanced space, it's incredibly important that we are doing so with a constant ability to recalibrate what is working, who's not at our table, where can we dig in more diligently and be more effective in terms of the connections that we're trying to make for folks to ultimately break the cycle of homelessness. We've made some really exciting progress since the last time that I had an opportunity to speak to you. We have really worked to focus on aspects like coordination of care. How well are the teams on the ground working with each other to maximize the available resources that we have to connect folks to? How can we ensure that these teams are communicating, that we remain aligned in not only our goal, but also how we can ensure that these connections are made in a positive way that create meaningful opportunities for folks in that space. We have addressed specific challenges that we've heard from encampment residents that would be meaningful to them. These include things like laundry, access to a laundromat, or to other support providers in our community who have stepped up. We've had some great success in facilitating things like access to laundry vouchers, for example. We've had Penobscot County Care step up to assist with transportation to assist folks in getting from the encampment space to laundromats. The Hope House has very, very graciously opened their space up to facilitate laundry access as well. The Mansion Church has offered to cover the expenses for folks who need laundry service. We continue to put calls out, and our partners continue to find ways to step up and answer those calls. We are working also to overcome transportation challenges. That's probably one of the next hurdles that we really need to address. This is an incredibly common theme that we hear from partners and providers across the spectrum in terms of a gap to really meet the needs of unhoused folks in our community. In addition to having Penobscot County Care step up, we're also very thankful to have organizations like Penquist who also want to come to this table and work with us. In addition, additional support providers who are coming to this space to say, okay, what do we need to do to make this work? And what are the solutions that we have available that we could maximize right now, like bus tickets being available, for example? And what solutions do we need to continue to look to as we set up a really sustainable network of resources for folks going forward, right? Because we know our work is not done as of December 31st, right? If anything, we're really just beginning to set up the kind of system that allows our partners to function at maximum capacity given available resources. We are going to be looking to solving for access to medical care. We've heard from the teams that provide medical services on the ground. Options team, St. Joe's and PCHC have a mobile medical team that go out and actually round in the encampment to ensure that folks that have chronic diseases or medical problems have the opportunity to see a provider. We're working with them and we'll be engaging additional partners to see what we can put together in terms of continued access to supports for folks, particularly medical care. And we continue to be receptive to additional needs and challenges that our partners are facing. One of the biggest right now is, as many of you are likely aware, the recent fire that resulted in the death of an encampment resident over the weekend. We continue to work to support our partners and all of us who are grieving that loss in this space, as well as the encampment residents who have lost a member of their community and their family. Trying to be really cognizant of the fact that ultimately what we're trying to help support folks with are human conditions, right, that need humane responses. And we continue to be really diligent in prioritizing, protecting the relationships of the folks who are doing the incredible work on the ground to affect this positive change that we ultimately need to see for folks to be able to break this cycle of homelessness. The teams that are doing work on the ground, I mean, the PATH team in particular, run out of CHCS, are just the most dedicated and incredible group of individuals you would want to have if you or your family member were experiencing this condition in life. And to know that we have people who are this dedicated and this invested and this passionate on our team doing the work day in and day out, consistently going above and beyond, I think is really helping to feed the partnership as a whole, right? It's really, I think it's easier to kind of buy into a mission when we can really see the effects of the work that is happening on the ground. And our ability to insulate those relationships and maintain the ability of those workers to connect with individuals and to create the kind of space where people can consider what going inside might look like or mean for them is paramount to the ultimate success of this closure. We've said from the get-go, we want to ensure that this process is humane, that it takes into account the need for grace and compassion, and ultimately love, right, in this space. The people who are doing this work are there because they love and care about the individuals in this space. They love the work that they do. So lifting those folks up and really being able to identify and overcome as many barriers that they're experiencing to having success is one of the pillars of what we're trying to do here. And we continue to move forward in that spirit, trying to get as much feedback as possible on what it is that we're doing and the impacts that it's having. I have some updated numbers to share with you. Since our last update, 21 folks in the encampment space have been matched to a voucher or housing subsidy. 12 individuals have actually been moved into housing, including one today.
That's right.
One today, which we were very excited about. 7 people are in the process of leasing up. We have additional folks lined up for unit viewings. This number continues to increase. And we continue to dig into the work of finding suitable spaces for folks to be moved indoors. Our housing task force that's just focused on working to get the individuals in the encampment into stable, safe, permanent housing are really digging into this work with an incredible amount of vigor. They continue to unlock new potential landlord relationships to try to ascertain how we can better support all parties in this space, set appropriate expectations, ensure that needs are met, that not only does the person who's going to be moving into that space understand what to expect out of that environment, but the person who's facilitating access to that space understands as well and is in as supported a position, right, to then support that individual as possible. And we're really excited about that work that's being done. We still continue to explore additional options to get folks inside. We have more warming centers opening this week. The second will be opening on the 15th, I believe. The Mansion Church is currently opening, and I believe the Brick is going to be opening at the end of this week. We have Public Health created these wonderful little information cards that are being passed out into the encampment so folks know what warming centers are available to them. And that's proving to be fruitful as well. We continue to hear from outreach individuals that folks are accessing the warming centers, and we're trying to coordinate with warming centers as well to say what additional supports do you need in that space to ensure that your work can continue and that we are as diligent about connecting folks to resources as possible. And that work will be ongoing. We're really thankful that the warming centers are as willing to come to the table and work with us on this as they are. And the shelters continue to follow suit. We've had great talks with both Main Street Shelter, who's doing incredible work, and the Hope House, also doing incredible work. And both partners really want to come to the table to further this goal. That's not to say that we won't continue to have bumps in the road. We certainly will. But the dedication of this partnership and our ability to persevere through difficulty and challenge has been nothing short of incredibly inspirational. I'm happy to provide any further information and answer your questions.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Beck?
Yep, I do have a question. One thing that I appreciate is the fact that the city is being really careful to follow the 19 strategies. And of course, me being new and me being a nerd and loving to read, you've read it cover to cover, so it's a real page turner. But I have a question, I guess, about the fact that we started with a date, started with the closure date. And strategy number 5 talks about the fact that the ultimate goal should be move people into permanent housing and free up public spaces without the threat of forcing people to leave an encampment. And a date feels like a threat. Because come December 31st, everyone's got to get out. If we decided not to engage or, and what about those individuals who are engaging, but there's no housing yet available for them? What placement do they look forward to? And I'm sure these are things that are being thought about, but that's just something that just kind of jumped out to me about this.
Yeah, that's a great question, Counselor. We would have had to have a significant delay in our ability to really effectively manage and account for the significant safety concerns in that space if we had waited until we knew we could move everyone into permanent housing, right? And this was an incredibly difficult decision to make. It is certainly not one that was made lightly. We recognize the harms that are done, right, during encampment closures. And if a process is not humane and compassionately executed, those harms are legitimate, right? What we did, however, was to create ample space between the announcement of the closure and the actual date. We worked to ensure that we had reasonable options to move folks indoors, fully understanding that that is not a perfect solution, right? We would have loved to have been able to move everyone into permanent housing, right, as of December 31st. What we can say instead is, given the concerns that we have about the daily well-being of folks in that space, we could not delay this decision. It would not have been the humane thing to do to continue that space as it is, right? The amount of calls that I receive about this person being assaulted, this person being jumped, this person having all their belongings stolen, this person's tent being slashed, this person's, what have you, the list goes on. We know that there are real scenarios of predation in that space, that there are people being victimized, and certainly best practice, fully recognizing that it would be to move everyone into stable, permanent housing. The wait was too much, right? The cost of what that delay would have potentially meant to individuals, we feel was not appropriate, right? To what we could do if we can create a compassionate and humane response. And I've really had my ear to the ground on this because that's certainly something that weighs heavily on me, right? How the balance between the need to ensure safety for folks while we also recognize that this process has the potential to do real and lasting harm and to undo so much of the good work that's already being done in that space. When I'm getting calls from outreach workers, from direct service providers who are saying, Jen, I've never seen this level of engagement. I have people who have self-sabotaged on the last 4 lease signings, who I could not even get to go to viewings, are now showing up ready to go. People who are considering treatment, who have been entrenched in this lifestyle for years and years, are now beginning to consider what their journey forward might look like, right? That is not nothing. And does that mean we're going to get it right for every single person in that space? No, that's a risk that we have to be cognizant of, right? And it is also incumbent on us to mitigate any additional risks, which is why we wanted to ensure that we had that long lead time, right? Because a sweep is something where you declare a date, there's almost no lead time, and then you go in and you say, get out, right? There's no attempt to compassionately or humanely offer resources for folks to understand what individuals might be experiencing for barriers and challenges and to work diligently to solve for them, right? We've made conscious decisions, understanding that there are risks associated with them, but the risk of not acting meant that people on a near daily basis continue to be hurt in that space. That's just not acceptable as far as we're concerned. There is a way to move forward through this plan that does account for as many of those best practices as possible. And I believe we are hitting nearly all of them, right? We're working incredibly hard to ensure that this process is meaningful for people and that we can create the building blocks to not only allow us to work better as a community and a partnership, but also to ensure that the folks that we're helping to break this cycle do so in a way that has longevity and lasts, right? That's our goal. Fully understanding it's not perfect. We wish it would. We wish it was, right?
Yeah.
But I'm proud of what we've put together. I really am. I'm proud of the people that are coming to this table, even if they don't agree that this is the right course of action. We have so many people digging into this work. And at the end of the day, our missions are aligned, right? We want to see everyone in that space, everyone in our community who is unhoused, to ultimately reach stable, permanent housing. But for every individual, that might not be the next right step. And we need to have a plan that allows for options for folks to consider what's best for them and the space and the safety and the support to even be able to consider what those might be. And we've done that.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you.
Of course.
Counselor Fish?
I want to say congratulations. This is exciting news, and I know for the past year, being on council, we've been saying we've tried to have a date and we've never put a date out there, and it seemed to just get worse and worse.
Yeah.
So I think by setting the date, it's created an incentive for the partners to collaborate with you, and this is exciting that they've stepped up and you've made so much progress.
We're trying.
And it's not a humane environment. You know, I know it's complicated and complex and we're always going to have homeless, but I think that this report tonight of what you've given us, and with cold weather coming, and to see the partners calling you and collaborating and cooperating. I hope that this partnership and the incentive relationship you've created will be sustainable moving forward, so that we as a city can have a better grip on the encampment and the individuals that need help, so that so that the resources are readily available and maybe we can intercept the problems that have existed there. So this is exciting, and I know no one likes to hear the date, but now that we've set a date and to hear this progress and have the partners step up and call you and collaborate, I'm very pleased, and thank you for your hard work.
Of course. I'm honored to do it.
There are questions and comments, Councilor Fournier.
Thank you. And the fact that you're using words like compassion, grace, love, partnership, safety, support, that speaks volumes to me. So I had just one question here. Regarding the 21 vouchers and then the 12 individuals that are now housed, was that 12 within the 21? Are we double counting?
We're not double counting.
Okay,
Some of those individuals in that 21 count are represented in the 12 that have been housed, but we are also housing folks who don't have vouchers, right? So there are some folks for whom we can find alternative payment arrangements or who have income and can be supported in that space. So we're still housing individuals who maybe don't have a housing subsidy, but for whom we can still successfully connect to housing.
so maybe we could separate that so we can just get a
Sure.
little bit clearer of
Absolutely.
a picture. Thank you.
As a follow-up, my question is who's not in this count? Because these are all really positive things. How many folks do we have who are either not engaging or maybe who we're having more trouble getting them engaged in the process?
That's a great question. It's difficult to not have that number on the top of my head, and I do apologize. I'd be happy to get that for you.
Okay.
We know that there are about 60 individuals remaining in the encampment from the number that we started with. And honestly, the engagement can vary from day to day based on that individual's mindset, their readiness status, where they are sort of in that transformational change process. And because of that fluidity, it can be really difficult to say, you know, X number of individuals are not fully engaged, or X number of individuals are just completely not in a space, right, to be able to consider what that next right move for them is. And what we really need to be able to do is to house as many of the individuals in that space that are ready, that are engaged, so that we have that bubble, right, to be able to dedicate the resources that we do have, the incredible teams on the ground, with those folks who are currently resistant to engaging, right? I can't remember if I've said this here before, but one of the most life-changing quotes I've heard recently that really shifted my perspective on this work is that we're allergic to the notion that people are service resistant. Okay. Really, what this is coming down to is how well are we enabling the relationships between outreach workers and individuals in that space, right? How well are we removing barriers to their ability to go into that space and do what they do best, so that they can have that space to dedicate that extra time to those individuals who are just currently not in a space to be able to consider what comes next, right? There is a path forward for every person in that space. I have yet to meet anyone in the encampment who says, yep, I just love living out here, right? And for some, that's not to say that that's not their place of comfort. That's not their place of community, right? Those things can be true. And it can still be a reality that we just haven't found the right resource or the right approach, right, to meet that individual's needs. So what we are hoping to be able to get to a point is to work through the folks that we're currently housing and then use that time remaining to really be intensive about the supports that we are able to offer and the connections that we can make. Continue to identify what barriers we can remove so that the jobs of the folks that are doing the incredibly hard work can continue and to be as fruitful as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Have you encountered anyone that has mentioned where they would go if they're not housed? Is there any kind of a group that has decided we're going to go here and you know where that is so that we can address that situation?
We
before that happens?
haven't heard of any individuals who are saying, do you mean folks who are going to be leaving the encampment space, going to a different space to live
Ones that are not
outside?
engaged.
Yeah, that's not unfortunately a number that I have, nor have I heard from direct service professionals in that space that is something that's being talked about and considered. It very likely is. It's just not on my radar at this point in time, but I can absolutely dig into that and see what I can discover.
Thank you.
Of course.
Councilor Mallor.
being new to the board, it would be helpful to have a listing of the providers that are servicing the area. I mean, I could guess at who they are, but that's not fair to guess if I don't know. And it would also be interesting to know the numbers that the providers are servicing. You know, like you have 10 providers and each one is servicing 5 people. Are they all servicing the same 5 people?
I can certainly work on getting one.
I think it's important to know because some of these groups are going to be coming back for funding in future years, and we need to know how their performance has been, and we can't tell that if we don't. I mean, I can't tell it because I don't know who they are.
We've put together a resource guide that really lists out what is available to folks in that space, what supports partners can anticipate. I'd be happy to share that document with you. It'll give you an overview of exactly who is working with us in this space. And I can certainly work on dialing down on partner capacity,
Thank you.
of course.
It's Jillian here. Thank you very much for the update. Please keep the updates coming.
Absolutely.
We all know the clock is ticking and so appreciate you taking this time to keep us informed.
Of course.
Thank
Happy
you.
to. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda. Review of the new city website, which launched today. I assume that's Assistant City Manager Courtney O'Donnell.
Yes. Sorry, just turn the heat up a little bit. Thank you. Sometimes a little air is good, but it's definitely a little chilly, so I apologize. All right, so just a second here. I am going to share my screen. All right. Oops. So now. All right. So, as everyone likely knows, this week we did launch a brand new website, which was very exciting. It had been in the works for about, I'd say about 8 months or so at this point. Our previous website we had in place for about 11 years, and had many different people over the years kind of managing the site. And so it was a little unwieldy by the end there. And so a lot of time and effort went into this new website to migrate all the content and to make sure that it was accessible and user friendly. I am proud to say we did award the RFP to Civic Plus, which is a company that actually specializes in municipal website work. And this is completely compliant with Title II of the ADA, which is all fantastic as well. So we did launch what was called See Click Fix earlier this year. That was the reporting mechanism for folks to do, whether there's a pothole, graffiti, things of that nature. And then with this website, we did launch what's called Civic Ready or Bangor Alerts, which is a mass notification system. And so with that, I just wanted to show some highlights. So up here you have your general sort of global navigation panels. And as you scroll, you'll see what are called graphic links. These are meant to be buttons that folks often go to the website for and look for the most. And what's wonderful about this website is we will track the analytics and we will make adjustments based off of where people are going and what the sort of information they're looking for. And then in this middle section is our news and updates. So we'll be able to post a carousel, if you will, of various, not just press releases, but sometimes just information that we think is relevant in the moment that folks need easy access to. And as you scroll, you'll see social media on one side. And actually what's wonderful about this embedded Facebook and YouTube is that you don't have to have a Facebook account to actually see all the content that was posted on our Facebook. And additionally, you can click on YouTube And of course, it's doing that in this moment. I just tested it earlier. But actually, tree board occurred earlier this afternoon, and I was able to pull this up and actually watch it live from that embedded feed on the website. Sometimes it does get a little finicky, but certainly that's just like one extra way in addition to Zoom and the actual YouTube/City of Bangor options that folks have to watch live. And then our calendar, folks are very used to our calendar being on the homepage and being able to see all of the upcoming meetings with the agendas and things. And so you'll see, like for tonight is city council. If you were to click on read on and open it up, you will see the agenda up here in the top right hand corner, as well as the date, time, and location, and then the link if you wanted to join via Zoom. And that is true for any. You can open it up to be larger to see the whole month's worth of meetings and things. So very versatile. We hope to meet our needs. And then if you scroll right to the bottom, there's a list of helpful links that are, again, sort of those touch points that maybe didn't fit on all the graphic links that folks look for the most. Like I think GIS is one that's very helpful and common, ordinances, how to watch public meetings and bids and proposals, for example. And so with that, I just want to touch really quickly on this first button here called alerts and notifications. If you open that up, you'll have two options to receive alerts. And one of them is called the Bangor Alerts. That's mass notification. And if you want to receive emergency alerts, general city updates, news releases, traffic alerts, you would need to sign up through this system to receive emails, texts, or phone calls. But on the right is a built-in system to the website called Notify Me. And this is an option for these items specifically. And the reason why we did not combine these is because the functionality of Notify Me is very helpful and something we thought would be useful for individuals. Because if, for example, you were looking at the calendar, there's Notify Me button that's right on. It doesn't matter where you are on the calendar, there's a little Notify Me button, and the same is true for job listings, bid postings, and the agenda items. So it's sort of built into the website. We realized it might create a little bit of confusion having the two options, so we tried to make it as clear as possible in terms of the list to show which side you should sign up for depending on what sort of information you're looking for from the city. And so just check my list, I think. And then lastly, we had an opportunity to basically have what's called the department header, or in essence, a website within a website for Parks and Recreation. So rather than it just being a sub-page of the website, as you can see, the global navigation and all of these links all changed to be specific to Parks and Rec. Now, I will say that building out the content is ongoing, especially because historically Parks and Rec has been split between the city page and their My Rec page. And so we're continuing to flesh that out and migrate the content with the eventual goal that it'll all go to this site for everything Parks and Rec related. And then just one last thing, and I'll take questions, which not only is that true for Parks and Rec, but also for Community Connector. Sometimes, as you can see, depending on the size of your screen, it's going to adjust. And sometimes because this is so large, it does overlap. So that's something I will definitely reach out to Civic Plus over. But Community Connector, similar to Parks and Rec, also has the department header option so that it makes it much more accessible and easy to locate information specific to the transit system as well. And then they'll actually have their own news, and that is the city calendar. And they have their own Twitter account, but we use the City Hall's Facebook page for notices for Community Connector. So it's all embedded in one place for our riders. So with that, I do just want to give a quick thank you and shout out to Cody Bigu and David Warren. They worked very closely with all of us together to make this happen. So very successful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Questions? Did
Yeah.
Cody and David do the photography? It looks really beautiful.
So I will give kudos to Cody for that. That is, Cody not only is an excellent photo taker, he also, he went to NESCOM, so his skills in video are actually, very phenomenal. But yeah, so, two things. One, some of these photos he did take, but some, we actually explored, third-party options, folks that had taken, photos around the city, and for a small fee, you could purchase the use of those photos. So it's a mixture of both, but he is very gifted. So, yeah, hopefully this is very useful, for our residents, much more user-friendly and accessible.
So all I wanted to share is Cody's really good about Courtney, not Cody. Courtney's really good about giving a shout out to Cody and David, but I just want to do a shout out to Courtney because without Courtney's leadership, shepherding, desire, interest, and her willingness to go and say, no, we need to go talk. She's visited every department. And without that, it wouldn't be the product that we have today. So.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was a team effort. We wanted it to be, a fantastic thing, especially because it'd been so long since we had done something like this, and we hear regularly from our citizens that are looking for things, and it's just so difficult to show them how to navigate and where to go on that old website, and we're already getting positive feedback on this, so it's a great thing all around.
I did get a few text messages today with oohs and ahs, so well done. It's beautiful. It's such a
Yeah.
nice upgrade. And I think it really represents the city in a very modern and fresh light. So appreciate all the effort.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, any other questions or comments?
Well, I
Counselor Beck?
comment, I already nerded out over it earlier. But I just love it, but the part that's my favorite right now is the new agenda center. The fact that it's by department, by committee, you click on it, it's all in their chronological order with download links.
So, yeah, you can click in to open it up and
Yeah.
actually see everything, and you can download, so,
It's all right there. So
Yeah.
great job. Just great job.
thank you.
All right,
Really?
very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, get back to the beginning of the full packet. City manager update is next.
So welcome to the first night of the city council meeting, for the council year 24-25. Just sort of, some looking ahead items, if you will. Next Monday, we will return to our regular committee meeting structure. There will be some new business items and some update items. But we're also going to take an opportunity to provide a status update on where current projects are, so that you understand what's in the pipeline as well as, the new items that are coming forward. We're also going to look to schedule an ARPA workshop, just to review the status of obligations and beneficiary awards. We've had some absences in our grant support, so we're trying to get back on track with that. As you may recall, earlier this year, our fire department partnered with Eastern Maine Community College to provide instructors for EMT school. This program actually resulted in the hiring of 4 basic level EMTs within our department. There are folks who don't know, there are 3 levels of an EMT licensure. There's I'm still gonna call it basic, and I'm not sure if that's still what it's called, but it's advanced and paramedic as well. Our fire department staff are all required to attain the status of a paramedic licensure level. We actually were approached by United Training Center of Lewiston. So this is an accredited EMT training provider that is not Eastern Maine Community College, which has typically been our partner. They approached us to partner with them to provide advanced EMT training here in Bangor. That partnership would involve Bangor Fire employees being offered an opportunity to serve as instructors at that facility for a class of 16 individuals. Of the 16 students, 4 would be from our own fire department staff. So we would take some of our basics and roll them into this advanced class. The instructors are would be city employees that be paid by the city, And in return, United does not charge tuition for the 4 students that they would take in, through that advanced class. So we're working through the details of this agreement as well as internally, they'll need to notify personnel as to the opportunity to serve for instructor in this class, but I expect that to be finalized this week. And that class term will run January 23rd to May 29th. So again, it's another example of us trying to be really creative to solve for how we get our workforce trained and supported in a way that allows us to continue to provide the services our residents expect. I'm gonna go a little bit backwards here. I think many of you may have seen in the paper, the Cedar Falls Mobile Home Park article. So there have been a number of organizations that have reached out to the city. So we are having it's not with the co-op specifically. I believe they have other support, but there are other organizations in the state who are looking to provide the support. We've agreed to, so we're gonna be meeting with some folks next week to see if there's any opportunity to help facilitate that co-op purchase. Last week you heard from the last meeting, you heard from an individual about the Valley Avenue, her concerns about the speed along Valley Avenue. Next week at infrastructure, they're going to be providing you sort of an overview of what we do when we're doing a traffic study and sort of the parameters we use. And I will tell you, we have a long list of traffic study requests. So we've reached out and that's been added to the list and we'll certainly add that, but it's currently deployed in a different location right now. So just kind of give you an inside view of that and we'll continue to follow up with the residents.
What's the process? I mean, if there's a study and it's okay, we think we should put one in, is it decided at the staff level? Does the council need to say we want to put a speed bump in there?
So historically, what we've looked at is what is the appropriate traffic calming measure?
Right.
Because a speed bump isn't always the most appropriate traffic
Well,
calming.
because
If
like
you
this
remember, we've
year
done
they
some
put
bump
one on,
outs.
like on Kentucky again.
So
It
we did
seems
that
like-
as a test.
Yeah, it seems like if one goes in, if it speeds 25, you ought to be able to go over it, going 25.
Yep.
You gotta slow down like 10 to go over there
Yep.
without going, you hitting your head on the roof. And it took a crew of about 4 people, 2 days to put it in. It's taken them 2 days they spent all day today taking one side of it. So it's gonna take 4 days, take them in and out at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year and the end. Yeah, so
And I
it's a
think-
lot of staff.
Right, and we just put that temporarily in as a test.
Right.
So if you think
I the
about it,
test failed.
correct. Well, I will also share.
I
with
mean,
you
people
that-
like that slow down traffic.
Well,
It wasn't the best speed bump.
they did and they didn't, because I will tell you that the neighbors adjacent to that location were not pleased by the noise that gets made every time a vehicle
Oh,
goes
yeah.
over it. There's also been some recent conversation at DOT level about how speed bumps. What you should also kind of check is you look at the speed coming up to the speed bump. So what will happen if somebody's gonna use excessive speed, they tend to use excessive speed right up to the speed bumps, slow down enough to get over the speed bump and accelerate again. So some of it now is actually saying when you're putting in a speed bump, you should now also be measuring speeds X number of feet beyond it to see if the speed is still happening. They're just slowing down for the bump. Another item that's coming up is you're gonna see likely today, tomorrow or Friday, you're gonna start seeing notices that we have been notified that the contractor doing the Broadway Bridge on 95 is going to be instituting overnight closures of Broadway. So they are gonna be closing Broadway Sunday through Thursdays from 8 PM to 5 AM as they disassemble the northbound bridge. So you're gonna be we're gonna try to send out a bunch of media about that so that people understand what that means. And basically what it means is they're closing the roadway. You'll still be able to get on to the interstate access. But obviously if you were coming from, say, the Hannaford on Broadway and wanting to go north, sorry, you're not gonna be able to go north. The detour is gonna be all the way around. You could get on Broadway and go south, get off on Union, turn around and come back north. But Really what it is a cutoff in between. Public safety has met with them that if we had an imminent and emergent need, that they would allow public safety. They'll be able to manage a public safety need if it's imminent and emergent, so. And that is slated to begin, this weekend and continue through December 6th at this point. So you're gonna see us trying to provide a lot of information about that.
Other questions on that first, before I ask? Okay, so my question is about the impact to the businesses. Like there's a UPS right there, there's a few other businesses. Is the street in front of those businesses going to be closed, or is it just underneath the bridge?
So it's basically just underneath the bridge,
Okay.
but on either side of it. I would say also the fact that the closure is occurring 8 PM to 5 AM should have virtually no impact on those businesses.
Very good, thank you.
We did get, I know you were all notified of the fact that Heal has closed their heart center. So the public health director and I did meet with, representatives of Heal yesterday. They continue to be in a restructuring phase. It is not clear to us at what point they may reopen. We're, looking at what other opportunities may be available for individuals in need. And we've been, promised that we would get an update on the status of the progress that they are making, every Friday. So I'll continue to get you updated. We'll continue to look at what alternatives are in place to ensure that people are still getting the services that they need.
How does that impact the work at the encampment?
Not very much.
Okay.
Heal was obviously a space that we could ensure and encourage people to be inside during the day. But we also know we have some space inside that's available during the day. They are providing some amount of outreach. It isn't clear to us what those hours look like in those services. So we're trying to refine that and get that information back. But I can tell you, there have been times where we said, you know what, because of the work in the encampment, we need the van, and we get the van. So we're doing those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Yep. My last item is about thinking about all of the other meetings we're gonna have. So you're gonna have your regular committee meetings next week. Next Wednesday, there is a council workshop scheduled, how to go through some of the, you gotta do your FOIA training, get you some information and background on your rights and responsibilities related to personnel and labor. Sort of just an overview of charter provisions and ordinances that we really ought to be aware of, and an opportunity to talk about how we want to move forward in an operating policy. So that's next week, but after that, also next week is, I think you all saw the City of Brewer was here. So I will remind folks that the City of Brewer's ceremony for their new councilors is next Tuesday, the 19th at 6 PM in Brewer. Then we have our Wednesday meeting, and next Thursday is the county budget meeting, which I believe Councilor Tremble and Council Chair Pelletier represent us all at. We will also be looking at doing meetings for your goal setting, having the opportunity to do some joint meetings with the school committee, and likely a joint meetings for the City of Brewer. And then ultimately with our legislative delegation, as we start the first year of the biennium, it will be a full-on session. So I think determining, what our priorities are and how to advance those priorities with our legislative representatives will be important.
Thank you. Questions for the city manager?
All right.
I will entertain a motion. Yes, Councilor.
Yes, make a motion, MRS 405-6A personnel matter.
Second. So we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. This requires a roll call vote. Councilor Fournier,
Yes.
Councilor Mallor,
Yes.
Councilor Beck,
Yes.
Councilor Hawes.
Yes.
Councilor Fish.
Yes.
Councilor Trumbull.
Yes.
Councilor Dean.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, 8-0. We are in executive session.